Come on in, sit next to me. Tell me how you been and spill a little tea. Share a happy grin and let your mind go free. Everybody wins, keep it light and carefree. It's just a thoughtful exchange. We're engaging our brains about the arts here in town. Get the word going round. So come on in, sit next to me, and sip a little Fort Dodge tea. Fort Dodge tea, a thoughtful exchange about the arts. Thanks for dropping by.
Hey, we're back. It's FDT. It's episode 10. Shelly, this is cool. 10 episodes. Not every podcast makes it to 10 episodes. So it's pretty cool. We've made it to 10.
We made it to 10.
How do you feel?
Should we high five?
Do you feel like a professional now?
I don't.
What?
I don't, but I just really have enjoyed these last 10 episodes, and it's just really fun to sit down and have conversations with our members and hear the stories behind what's going on. So.
I feel like every episode could be like, Shelly teaches Peter that art actually is for everyone. Shelly shows Peter this place. Shelly, it's like I'm just getting cultured all around town. So
you look different after 10 episodes.
Yes, I look brighter and cheerier. Oh, it's fun. But I do got to say, where are we at today? This is a different place than all the other episodes.
Yep, which is kind of one of our focuses for each episode is to highlight our members. And the Fort Dodge Public Library is a longtime member of the Fort Dodge Fine Arts. And they have an amazing summer program going on this season for all ages, adults, students, all kinds of fun activities going on, and you can find those on our calendar on our website at fdfineartsassociation.org.
Of course. That's like one of my favorite things. I always plug the calendar. Community calendar. It's one of the best ones there. There's all sorts of art stuff going on.
And as we talked about last month, there are 74 events on the calendar this month. Which is amazing. And that's just arts and culture. So
that's wild.
That's amazing. And those are just our members. So Fort Dodge is thriving.
That's awesome. And for everybody watching, these people behind you are not actually people behind you. It's a mannequin and a stand-up.
Tell me if they move.
All right, I will.
That's going to freak me out.
Well, let's get on with this. Who are we sitting down with today?
So today we are featuring another longtime member of the Fort Dodge Fine Arts Association, the Karl King Band. Karl King Municipal Band.
Amazing.
No less. And we are lucky enough to have two members, one long-time member with lots of fun stories to share, and of course another one with his own version of these stories. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves, your background in music, and the brief version of your role in the Karl King Band for now. And we'll get into the meat later. You're going first.
I'm first.
Yeah.
I'm Roger Netz. Started off playing saxophone in 5th grade and went on to high school and really had a great time playing music. Jerry here was my high school band director, and we did all kinds of jazz contests and
Which high school was this? Was this Manson? Okay.
Manson.
Cool.
Yeah, had a great time. And then I moved around a little bit when I came back to the area. I can't remember who called me up. It was probably Ole, huh?
Ole
asked me to fill in
at that time, yeah.
Asked me to fill in, and I don't know how long ago that was, but it's been a while now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, like 8 years, 20 years, 30 years.
Like 25 to 30,
Okay.
something around in there.
Yeah. Ooh, we could get into some good stories about teachers and students and what you were like.
Well,
as
and
a
then
kid.
I ended up getting my teaching degree, and then I taught alongside Mr. Jimmerson.
Yeah, we've done it all.
For a few years, and he was a wonderful mentor, and just. But then I started off on alto, and then I switched at one point to bari sax, and I've been on bari sax ever since. I just love it. I have a great time playing, and it's getting to now where I kind of know a lot of the marches and stuff that we're playing and the overtures, but every now and then something new comes along.
Yeah, and you have your own musical career too outside of the band as well.
Yeah, I do. I do some outside music. I do some Irish shows and including language and party music, and then I do a Sand Hill Kid where I do old time Western music, like the Sons of the Pioneers and things like that.
The first time I ever actually formally met you was you as the Sandhill Kid, and it was Frontier Days. It was probably about 114 degrees outside, maybe. I don't know. It was, and you are dressed like you are pinned down and up everywhere you can be in this outfit. And it's like, I'm thinking, if I'm hot out here and I got shorts and a t-shirt, what's this guy like?
He's hardcore.
Yes, dedication. It was fun though, because I was like, I'm just gonna follow you on Facebook, and then to see people like tagging like their kids with you there is like another fun thing. Like every year when Frontier Days pops up, I get to see it again. So it's kind of a fun thing.
Yeah, it's fun. The kids, they like to dance and sing along, and
That's good.
I think the first time I met you was you played in a Comedia Pit, didn't you?
quite a few of those. Also.
Yeah, and this would have been, I don't know, 15, 16. I've been here quite a while now. But yeah, a long time. And then I learned that you're a fire eater.
What?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Forever Plaid. We did Forever Plaid.
So stage door.
Is that why?
No, that I was clean shaven at that time.
You
I
had to
don't
be.
think it might work with.
So he was in a stage door production small cast show called Forever Plaid, and we did that at the Opera House, and it was so much fun. It's such a great show, and we had
Yeah,
the perfect
it was.
cast. And Roger was game to learn how to eat fire
Wow.
during this show.
I had been in it once before.
Oh, yeah.
When I first came back, I think, with some guys out of Pocahontas, and it just that show has a tendency to grow legs of its own, and just it's just a fantastic show if you ever get a chance to see Forever Plaid, if you haven't seen it already.
Yeah.
That, and I played with the Fort Dodge Glee Club too.
Okay.
With the band for that for a few years.
So you're seasoned. In a good way.
Yeah. Yes.
In a good way.
I'm still marinating over here.
Yeah. We both are. I love it. All right. And next, Jerry, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I'm Jerrold Jimmerson. I grew up here in Fort Dodge. I started playing in band in 4th grade. And I had a wonderful teacher for 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. Edith Engel, was just a great lady. And when I started in band, I was being raised by my grandparents, and they didn't have any money to buy an instrument at all. And so they said, if you're going to start in band, that's fine, but we'll start you on your mother's metal clarinet. And clarinets at that time during the late 20s, early 30s were made out of metal and wood. Plastic, of course, had not been invented yet. And so, this was a metal clarinet, and it worked fine. The thing I found out many, many years later is that my grandmother had actually bought that clarinet for my mother from Mrs. King and her music store.
Wow.
So the connection was just incredible to me that, I never knew that.
Your
But-
life was destined to
It was,
be a
yeah.
Carl King
Yeah.
legend.
And so then in junior high, there was only the one junior high at that time. And so 7th, 8th, and 9th grade there, I played in the band. I remember my first semester in 7th grade, they picked people for the band. And I was not selected for the band. There were about 20 of us that did not get picked. And so we had to go to the director's office, and we'd sit and just kind of practice on our own until we were good enough to be in the band. Well, that kind of upset me because I thought I played pretty well. And by the middle of the year, I did make the band. And so went rolling into 8th grade, all ready to go. And at that time, the band was really big with just the one junior high. And there must have been, I'm going to guess, 35 or 40 clarinets in the band.
Wow.
And I was probably 33rd out of 35 or whatever. It was clear at the end of the section, but they had a challenge system where if we could play better, if we thought we could play better than the person next to us, we could go behind a curtain and we could play, the band would vote, and then that person won and you would move up.
Oh,
And
wow.
That's intense.
That is
yeah,
intense.
it was. And by the end of the year, I'd made it up to 4th chair.
Wow.
So I was rolling. And so then in ninth grade, then there were like 4 of us that sat in the front row, and we would be the first clarinets. And so we would kind of take turns. We would go to first chair and then second chair, third chair, fourth chair, and we just rotate back and forth. And at that time, then the handwriting was kind of clear on the wall, because I think the director was trying to discourage me with that metal clarinet, which he didn't like at all. And so my grandmother did break down and buy me a wood clarinet.
Oh, wow.
And when I went into 10th grade at the high school, I had really had it with a clarinet. And I talked to my director and I said, I've always wanted to play saxophone. Can I play a school saxophone or whatever? And he
Doesn't
says, well,
every kid want to play saxophone?
Well, yeah, that was kind of odd at the time, because jazz bands really hadn't started
sure.
yet.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
So it was a pretty limiting thing. And he said, well, I don't really need any more saxophones. But he said, I really need a bass clarinet player. I said, fine, give me anything. As long as it's not a clarinet, that's fine. So I started on the bass clarinet. And the spring of the year, I walked into Mr. King's music store, and I found him in the back of the music store. And I introduced myself, and I said, I'd really like to play in your band someday. And he said, what do you play? I was 15 years old. I was a sophomore in high school. I just finished my sophomore year of high school. And he asked me what I played. I said, I play the bass clarinet. And he says, oh, yeah, we haven't had a bass clarinet in the band for about 2 or 3, 4 years now. He said, yeah, we might be interested in one. He said, come to practice on Friday night, and we'll see what you can do. So I show up at practice and get my horn out, and we're playing this really hard music. And about halfway through the rehearsal, he stopped the band right in the middle of a song. And Arnie Bodie was a familiar name to people in Fort Dodge,
He keeps
I think.
coming up in these podcasts.
Arnie said, he said to Arnie, hey, this kid's pretty good. He said, see that he gets a uniform before he goes home tonight. So I made the band.
Nice.
So, yeah. So I played in the band for 43 years. And then there was an opening for Conductor. And so I applied for that and auditioned and was elected. And so I did that for 22 years, directed the band, and just retired last July. So.
Yeah.
That's wild.
22 years. Okay, so when these notes that I was referring to earlier were the last time we had this conversation about the history of it. You had directed 16 years. So yeah, okay.
So yeah,
about
so
6, 7 years.
Total, it's 25 years, and that is really, for me personally, I've always been kind of a numbers guy, and so the numbers were rolling for me, so that I was going to turn 80 years old last summer. I'm almost 81, a couple days, but 80 years old, and Karl King turned 80 years old and died like 6 weeks later. And so I thought, there's no reason for me to try to go beyond 80 that I can think of. And Dwayne Olson was our manager of the band and a longtime player, and a guy that I learned so much from and respected a lot. Ole played in the band 65 years.
Wow.
Well, if you add it together, 43 and 22 comes out to 65.
Wow.
And so why try and be 66, to play that? So that was pretty influential in my reasons to retire.
Yeah.
And plus some health things that I had going on, which didn't really make it safe for me to do that anymore. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Which I can't imagine was an easy decision, especially since your Karl King journey started at 15. Is that what you said?
Yeah, 15.
Yeah, man, you're a legacy. That makes you a legacy.
Well, thank you.
For sure.
I don't,
And to just be like, hey, I'd like to play in your band sometime. It's just like, yeah.
Walk in and find him working in the back.
Yeah.
You busy Friday?
It's insane. That'd be like just going to the Beatles and be like, yeah, I like Traffy. Well, he's pretty good, isn't he?
Is that your British accent?
That's the best I got.
That's
I told
terrible.
you didn't want to hear it. Do you remember when Ben Aller's episode? I was like, you don't want to hear my, and you're like, no, we do. Well,
Yeah.
if you guys all if you stuck around this long,
My name's Ringo, and I'd like to try out on the drop set.
that is literally 1,000 times
Ringo,
better than
That
mine.
is so
See
much
what you can
better. He didn't even know that was going to come up.
Oh, this is gold.
I love that. Okay, so let's maybe talk a little bit about the inception of this band originally. Can you speak to that?
Yeah,
in some sense.
My wife gives me a hard time about this because I'll go down and I'll be working on the computer, and she'll come down and she says, "What are you working on?" And I say, "Well, I'm just writing my book." And so that's kind of a joke with us, but
Are you?
Yeah, well, it won't be a book; it'll just be memories for me. But
A book of memories.
but the bands really started in Fort Dodge in the 1870s. We've traced it back that far to 1870s, and part of the impetus for that was these guys were coming home from the Civil War and settling down here, and they had played in bands in whatever bases they were at, and they kind of wanted to play again. So there were actually 2 or 3 bands that played in the 1870s, the 1880s, 90s, and so on. And finally, around 1900, there was a director that came to town, and he kind of pulled everybody together and combined it into one band. The first director was named Karl Quist. His picture's on the wall back here.
Okay.
And he directed the band from, 1901 was the first year of the organized band.
Would it have been like a city band then?
At that point, there were so many variations of it.
Okay.
Looking back, it was called, for a while, it was the Fort Dodge Military Band.
Okay.
And they were associated with the National Guard. And actually, the Larimar Ballroom was originally the armory for the National Guard, 1905. And that was the band rehearsal place as well. They were based out of there. So they were the Fort Dodge Military Band. Pretty soon, then they became the 56th Regiment Band and went to a lot of these encampments with the National Guard. Then they were getting funding from that. That funding dried up. Then the merchants decided to kick in some money and support the band. So they became the Fort Dodge Municipal Band. And then the city decided, and so the funds were very undependable as far as where the money's going to come from for the next year. But finally, Karl Quist in 1915 decided he'd had enough. So Eagle Grove made him a big offer. Don't know how much, but it was better than he was getting in Fort Dodge. So he went up to direct Eagle Grove.
Okay.
And there was a cornet player named John McGinnis. Again, some people might know these names from the town, but John McGinnis did not want to be the conductor, but he said he would lead the band. And so for 2.5 years, he led the band. And then Karl Quist came back. The Eagle Grove thing kind of dried up. But 1920, then Quist finally had enough and went to Oregon, moved to Oregon. And that's when they advertised for a director in a national magazine. Karl King happened to see it when he was living in Canton, Ohio, and applied for it. There were 2 gentlemen that were selected to audition. Both were from Ohio, actually. And everybody liked Karl King, and so they offered him the job. And in the fall of 1920, and he started with his first concert January 21, in 1921.
Imagine if it was called a different name, whoever that other applicant was.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine it being called the Joe Anderson Band.
Oh my
God. Well,
I don't know.
Yeah, so that Mr. King was here for 50 years.
Okay.
And then, when he passed away, there was a lot of concern about whether the band would even continue. Because at that time we were doing Thursday night concerts downtown here.
On the square?
Right, on the square, in the
Okay.
bandstand on the square. There's a picture of it right over there.
Okay.
And we did concerts there. They were at 8 o'clock. We would show up. They would hand us a folder of music, and we would play for an hour. Never saw it before, just sight read the concert. And then Friday
I love
night,
that.
they had rehearsals up in the Knights of Columbus Hall. And then Sunday night, here we were back out at the band shell and playing a whole different concert. And that went on from the first part of June to the middle of August at that point, much longer season. So we were doing a lot of concerts. And for me as a 15, 16-year-old kid, I mean, I was just reading music after music after music. And so when he passed, there were a lot of people that thought the band wouldn't continue. And so, in fact, there was a meeting at Treelors, which some people will recognize from your podcast. And the main reason for the meeting was to try to decide what to do with the band funds. And out of that meeting, they decided to continue the band. And Bill Green, who was my college band director, was named the conductor of the band.
From what college?
Buena Vista.
Oh, BV. Okay.
And they dropped the Thursday night concerts, they dropped the Friday night rehearsals, and everything focused on Sunday. Afternoon rehearsal, Sunday night concert at the band shell.
Which is how it is.
Just like it is
now.
today. Yeah,
Yeah.
basically it continues.
Which still amazes a lot of people when you tell them, well, we practice for an hour, and then we go out and we play the concert, and everybody's like, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
That is pretty wild, honestly.
I'm asked that
I
all the
mean,
time.
when you think about it that way, yeah.
But you got to be able to do it or you don't last, you know.
Ooh.
And so, unfortunately, Bill Green suffered a fatal heart attack on Father's Day in 1977. And during rehearsal, we were about 20 minutes into rehearsal, and he just kind of stepped off the podium, walked over to his left to about where the third clarinets would sit, and I thought he was going to go over and talk to somebody, and down on the floor he went. And, of course, you know, it's 1977, no cell phones. We're in a strange location. We were in the Knights of Columbus Hall up the street here. Where do you find a phone?
Yeah.
Nobody's got a phone. And so, you know, finally the ambulance came and took him, and he died later that night. And so here we are, 7 concerts left in the season, and no director. But some guys stepped up, and each wanted to audition, and so each person took a turn at it. And from there, then eventually Reg Shive was selected as the director. And Reg did it for 25 years, and then his health kind of caught up with him, and that's when I came on the scene in 2003 and directed until 24.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Ooh. That couldn't have been an easy decision to decide to retire, but I assume that you knew that there were at least one, I don't know how many applicants there were after you retired, but at least one perfect fit to continue this story with the infamous
I had gone out and talked to Dan personally.
Dan Cassidy.
Yeah, and I have a lot of respect for Dan.
Mm-hmm.
Dan's been in the band a long time. Dan knows the traditions of the band and the idiosyncrasies of the band, and
honors that.
Right, and the style of programming that Mr. King did, and so on. And so I told Dan, I said, you'd be a perfect fit, you know. And I really, really encouraged him to take it over. And Dan said he would do it for a while. Now, I don't know how long a while is. I know he's going to do it through the 2025 summer season.
Okay.
And I personally am hoping that Dan will continue doing it.
Hear that,
But-
Dan?
One thing that came out of the meeting that I talked about earlier was a set of bylaws, which kind of regulates as far as how the band is run with the succession of conductors and just all kinds of things. And they never had anything like that before. So
Right. Well, I don't know if you've ever looked at the Karl King Band website, but it is very thorough. And I assume that a lot of that is due to you.
not really.
Well, you are a very detailed person, Jerry Jimmerson.
Yeah,
And your press releases are very thorough.
I do
and
that.
I appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, the timelines on there, the photo blurbs, I mean, it is just an incredible amount of information on this website.
I'm going to have to interrupt and say I give a lot of credit for that to Alan Sponheimer, who was teaching at South Hamilton School's elementary band at the time.
Okay.
And Alan and Nancy Olson, Ole's wife, were really responsible for organizing that. And thank goodness Mrs. King saved everything that Karl King had. She had trunks of stuff.
Musicians are kind of hoarders.
Letters from John Ringling, and just pictures of Sousa, letters from Sousa, when King wanted to try to get in the military service, and Sousa wrote him a letter, and then we got those letters, and it was an incredible amount of stuff that she saved, and it's all right here in this room. It's
Right.
just not out where you can see it, and so
Yeah. So you guys have a space at the library, which is kind of a little museum archive space, as well as you rehearse here as
Right.
well, right? In the large
in the
conference
large room, yeah,
right across
for the
which is
summer concerts,
which
yeah.
is a great utilization of the space.
You bet.
And just for anybody listening, if you're just like, why is there a band at a library? It's because municipal and municipal, correct? So
Right.
like the library is municipal, so is the band, and then it just kind of joined up that way. Which how much have we touched on as being municipal band? I think we need to come back to that though, like the whole that. But,
I mean, I just love that this longevity that the city has found the importance and value of continuing that tradition, and I hope that is in the foreseeable future as well. Yeah.
yeah.
And the museum. I mean, that was another thing for our Blandon podcast to have a municipal museum in Fort Dodge as well.
Well, it makes me think, you were talking Carl Quist left and went to Eagle Grove, and I'm assuming they had some sort of a municipal band of some sort there too. So like, did every town used to have one and they all kind of went away and Fort Dodge's is the one that stuck it out? And if so, why did it stick it out? I mean,
Actually, no. What happened was bands struggled for funding, as I mentioned, between 1910 and 1900 and 1920. They struggled for funding. And so there were three gentlemen, Major George Landers, who directed the National Guard Band in Clarinda, Karl King, and a gentleman by the name of Alonzo Leach, who had played piccolo with the Sousa Band and was running a music store in Des Moines. And those three gentlemen came up with what's been known as the Iowa Band Law. And the Iowa Band Law was passed by the legislature. George Landers wrote it. King and Leach took it there to the legislature, and it was passed in 1921. And then the citizens in Fort Dodge voted it in here in 1923. And so basically the Iowa Band Law says that a very small portion of property tax revenue can go to the purpose of maintaining and supporting a band.
Interesting.
And so that's where the funding came from for a lot of years. It was actually 100 years. And unfortunately, in 2023, there was a lot of shakeup in the property tax in the legislature and the governor, and that was dropped from the rolls of the property tax. That and a lot of other things. But fortunately, the band has meant so much to the city here that the city stepped up, and they do provide us a budget. So usually when you say municipal band, that means that the band members get some type of money from the city. Yeah. And, at the time that the band law was passed, there were almost 40 states in the United States that had some form of band law.
Okay.
That they drew on that original law that Karl King and Major Landers and Alonzo Leach had written back then, and they took this law and enacted it in some form in their states, and there were at least 3 foreign countries that had the band law as well.
So did it have to be a specific genre of that city band? Because I think about the big bands. We did the 515 Big Band podcast.
Yeah.
So, or did it have to focus around marching, circus? How did that?
It had to be a band. It could not be an orchestra. It could not be a choir or a glee club or anything like that. It had to be a band.
Interesting.
And there is nothing about a jazz band in there. And so if you read the law, which I have, it's strictly for the maintenance and uniforms of a band.
Okay.
That's pretty cool.
But it's no longer in existence,
Right,
unfortunately.
right.
But yeah.
But laid the foundation
it was
of what was to come.
It was 100 years when we had the funding here in Fort Dodge.
That's cool.
So-
I mean, and kudos to the city for stepping up when they were like, well, if this isn't a thing anymore, we're going to make it a thing still. Yeah. That's really cool, because I know that, I don't know, just the property tax laws are kind of tied down. They can only do certain things and whatever. So when that just went away, it's like, well, now what are we going to do? And they figured it out. So kudos. I mean, that's really cool. makes me wonder if that happened in another town, what would happen? You know, like this, it's really important to this city.
Well, I do know that there are other towns that have pretty much stepped up as well, and either the merchants or the city government or whatever has stepped up and replaced some of those funds, and there are some people that have to raise funds as well. But,
Yeah, always.
But the model was there. Mr. King made sure that bands would be taken care of.
That's super cool. And that's why municipal bands are a thing.
That's why they are a thing.
That's super cool.
No, that's really interesting, and we could go. I mean, the history of this with the fire downtown that stored them. I mean, we could go on just solely about the stories from the past, but I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about the current.
And that's why we all hope that he does write.
I know. All I'm thinking about is this website and
One
the
of
book.
my favorite things of the band is listening to the stories, you know, from when he was 15 or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the knowledge that you've passed on to the players, and the legacy, like I keep saying, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
It is a big,
The
impressive
thing
deal.
Paul brought out at my retirement concert really hit me hard because I'd never thought about it. But when he said that I'd been in the band for 65 years, I've been in the band more than half of its life. Because this year is our 125th anniversary.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's the 125th, and I was in 65 years. I played more than half of the history of the band.
Holy smokes.
And I never thought of that. It just...
You
I
should have
thought,
taken a
wow.
picture of yourself in the same spot at every concert.
Yeah.
And then it could be a flip book.
And they're getting to be fewer and fewer people that have played under King. And I know I've always appreciated hearing those stories too.
Yeah.
Yeah, how many in the band currently would have...
TH is the only one. TH Hofing
Okay.
is the only one left that played under King's direction. Wow. Now, you know, there are people here in town, but we're talking in the band.
Right, yes.
So, yeah. I mean, I'm here, Nancy Olson. Ardella Hine just passed away.
Yep.
Mary Heimberg just passed away. Those were some of the people that played. Yeah.
Ardella Hine was also one of the founders of the Fort Dodge Fine Arts Association.
Yes.
So crossover
That's cool.
there as well.
Nice.
So, Roger, you add a unique component to the concerts on occasion, right?
Oh, with the singing?
Yes, with the singing.
Yes.
So, how
Enjoy that.
often are you doing that? Is there a...
Whenever asked, and if I'm available, I jump at the opportunity. It's so much fun, I think.
Well, not to be cheesy, but this is your bag. Your bag, baby.
The best one was at the Spencer Fair when they put me up on a big screen.
Okay.
I was singing "God Bless the USA" and they had the flag waving behind me.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Is that your... I was going to ask, what's your favorite
Oh
tune
yeah,
to sing
when
with
I
the
came
band?
down, people just came up to me and thanked me for singing it, and it was an amazing experience.
Was that your favorite experience
Yes,
with the
definitely.
sing? Is that your favorite song to sing with the band?
I enjoy singing that one. It's a nice one. I like to sing and I like to perform.
What are some of the other ones you do with the band?
A lot of times I'll be asked to do the Irish sing-alongs, and
Of course.
those are always fun. And I can't think.
I used to have Roger and his wife Sherry sing with the band on a duet, and I always enjoyed when
do
you both did
a big
that.
band thing or something. Or,
Right, yeah.
Of course, I really enjoy the big band stuff too, and that was always fun.
Yeah.
I played with Irv Reitzel for a while, all over the Midwest.
So, okay, you mentioned the Spencer Fair. How often has the King Band traveled? Because I think of them here at the middle school or at the band shell. They can play somewhere else.
Well, again, we'll go back to when Mr. King was here. They played at a lot of different county fairs.
Okay.
And so, you know, we know that they played in the Cass County Fair in Atlantic. They used to do the Buena Vista County Fair in Alta every year. They did concerts here for the Hawkeye Fair, which was out where the old expo pool used to be.
Okay.
And they did a lot of different fairs around. Probably the biggest thing they did was the first year Mr. King was here when they played at the Corn Palace in Mitchell, South Dakota.
Oh,
Cool.
Yes.
They were playing at the Iowa State Fair at the time, and somebody from the Corn Palace heard them and recruited them, and so it's like the Sousa Band played the Corn Palace one year, and then the Karl King Band played the Corn Palace another year. You're kind of running in some pretty big company there. But
For sure.
Mr. King and the band played the State Fair from 1921 until the last performance, 1959.
Wow.
And the Spencer Fair was about the same amount of time as well.
Yeah.
Might have been a little later in the 1920s, but 1959 was the year when Mr. King finally said, that's enough, and so I played for a lot of people. And again, if you look at the website, there's pictures of him directing the band, and there might be somebody off in the background balancing on 3 or 4 chairs up in the air. And yeah,
like they did.
they played for all the acts, and everything like that. And
That's another thing they did at the Spencer Fair was they brought back kind of some of the circus acts.
Oh,
Guys
fun.
driving in motorcycles in a ball, a tightrope bicycle, and
Oh, wow.
so that was really cool.
we played for the 75th anniversary of the Spencer Fair, and then we played again for the 100th anniversary of the Spencer Fair. And that's the one where you sang, and yeah.
Oh, fun. Okay, we have to. This just popped into my brain. We have to talk about this because when Fort Dodge Fine Arts initially started looking into the Phillips project, restoring that auditorium, the King Band photos were one of the first things we saw. And I don't know if you've ever seen any of those, but it shows Phillips Auditorium with standing room only. People lined up in the balconies, on the steps, in the back. That auditorium seats like almost 1,400 people. So there had to be like 1,700 people in that space. And that was for Iowa Public Television, correct? Wasn't that a...
I think the one you're referring to might be King's 80th birthday concert.
Okay.
That was his 80th, big celebration. And you're right, that was, standing room only. And there were so many people there. They were standing up and down the stairs.
Yep.
And the fire marshals would have had a heyday with that.
I know.
But fortunately, apparently they're not band freaks or whatever because
They let it go?
They weren't that, well, I don't know what happened. But yeah, there were a lot of people there. And it was people from all over the country. I mean, it wasn't just the citizens from Fort Dodge or from Iowa.
Yeah.
These people came from all over because Mr. King was turning 80. And it was probably going to be one of his last concerts. Mm-hmm. And it turned out to be his next to last concert.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
But
Yeah, those pictures are just like the whole board of directors was just like dreaming about what this experience could have been like.
the pictures I love to look at are the ones of the band on the website from the 1920s. And, of course, I like to look at the uniforms because they're different than what we wear now, which has been in existence since 1931. But there's this colored scrim or curtain in the background. It's not just a plain colored curtain, but it's a painted scene back there. And have you ever seen that one? Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was thinking that was the Iowa Public Television one. So that must have been a different...
That was in 91.
Okay,
That
so that
celebrated
was...
the 100th year of Karl King's birth.
Okay.
And that was actually a Saturday afternoon taping that we did for public television before we did the concert again on Sunday afternoon. Yeah.
Is there footage from the 80th birthday concert?
I don't know of any, but I do know that the first school that I taught in, I was in my 5th year teaching there, and I had brought a busload of my students over to the concert. And I had one student in the band that took pictures. And so he's got pictures of Mr. King, just camera pictures of Mr. King and of me playing in the band. And I am not aware that there's any footage of it, but there might be. I know there are DVDs of the 100th anniversary concert, which you can purchase here in the library of the Iowa Public Television.
And where was that recorded?
That was also at Phillips Middle School.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just combined the two stories in my brain. Okay.
It is a good APB, though. If anybody out there listening does have any footage, of the
Yeah.
80th birthday. That was the 80th birthday
It
one,
was the
right?
80th birthday.
If they got any footage of that, and I'm sure somebody does.
Yeah, it's somewhere.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
It would be.
Hit up the Fort Dodge Fine Arts Association.
I'm going to get an email next week.
Oh, you
that's
never
just
know.
Hours of footage.
Hit them up over at the Historical Society. See if they know anything about it. You never know.
I need to get that DVD too, if it's in Phillips, especially. Like, what a fun
Ooh,
thing to have
yeah.
scrolling during concerts in the foyer. Like,
Absolutely.
showing.
You
how
can
the
also
space was
find it
used.
on the computer.
No, I'll buy one.
On Google, yeah.
No, I'll buy one.
And that's why you're the president.
Yeah. So for Karl King Band today, how many people are in the band? Ish.
This was something that was done several years ago again, and I'll take you back a little bit. When Mr. King was directing the band, we would get a postcard in the first part of summer, and it would say a list of when all the concerts were and what time you needed to be there.
Yeah.
Thursday night here, with Sunday night there, Friday night rehearsal. And Mr. King never knew who was going to show up because there's no checklist of it.
Or like an
And
email.
so,
See you
yeah,
there.
after a while, he would tell me, Jerry, you might want to put your clarinet in the car tonight because we might be short clarinets. And so, yeah, I might have to put my bass clarinet away and go running over to my car and grab my clarinet because they didn't have enough. A couple of times we didn't have a bass drummer. And so here I am back in the drum section playing the
Clarinet
drums
and
with
the bass
it. Yeah, which is no easy job either, I'll tell you. That looks
Or
easy.
footage of that would be amazing.
It would be to me, I know that. But there was no checks and balances on it.
Yeah.
So what happened eventually was that they set the instrumentation of the band at 45.
Okay.
And so as the director, and this was for Reg as well as I, as the director, I always know that I'm going to have 3 flutes, 1 oboe, 1 bassoon, 6 trumpets, 6 trombones, 9 or 10 clarinet, whatever. It's all set. I maybe don't know who they are,
Okay.
but I know that I'm going to have all these people there, that I'm not going to have some section that's going to be exposed or thrown out of balance. And so that was a big improvement. And yeah.
So 45 still today?
45.
Okay.
That
And-
fits in the shell, fits in the budget, and it just everything works for 45.
Okay. That's a good note. I like 45.
Yeah, why not?
How do you feel?
Yeah, sure. It feels great. Feels great. I'm just like a numbers guy, so I love it when someone's just like, "This is what we have, and this is what works," and I
Flat.
know that this is the thing. And
Yep,
it's
45.
like, yes, it makes me happy.
And so you come from Manson, but I imagine there's people that travel just as far, if not farther.
Further.
Yeah. So like 515, gosh, they have people coming from down by Iowa City. I mean, like where are people coming from to participate in this band? Roger, do you know some?
All over the place. I know.
I would say the majority of the players are probably within a 60-mile radius of Fort Dodge.
Okay.
About an hour away.
But there are
But I
some
do
that
know,
come
yeah.
from Omaha and
There's
Sioux
some that come
City
from
sometimes,
Des Moines.
and Des Moines.
Or
Oh my gosh.
every so often we need a particular, let's say we need an oboe player. And
Sure.
they're pretty scarce, you know. And so we might have some from Cedar Falls, from University of Northern Iowa, or Iowa State, which
State.
is a little further away. So bringing in the good college
Yeah.
players as well.
So driving from Sioux City or Omaha every week in the summer to Fort Dodge is a real commitment.
Absolutely.
For sure. Do they get mileage? Just curious.
Yeah.
We don't have to talk about it. You know.
Well,
we
when
can cut anything you want to cut.
when I started playing, I'm sorry, I keep taking you back. But that's my first year.
These are important too.
I got $2 for the Thursday night concert. I got $1 for the rehearsal on Friday night, and I got $2 for the Sunday night concert, and I got $1 for mileage, and I was driving an hour to get here and back.
Nice.
And then Mr. King asked me to set up the music stands and the chairs, so I'd get an extra $1.
Okay.
So man, I was rolling in $7 a week.
Nice.
You know, which is
you have to remember back then, gas.
Right.
it's probably like $70 today. You know,
Right. Yeah.
But $7, yeah. Well,
I know when I was in high school, you could drive around all night for $5.
Gosh. When I turned 16, gas was 99 cents.
Yeah.
That's a change.
Yeah, I remember being in high school. It was under $1.
$7 a week. Gosh.
Yeah, but it's more than that now.
Sure. Okay. But I mean, what a testament again to the group to have people driving from such a distance
Yeah,
regularly.
for $8. No, just,
Yeah,
sorry.
now it's
I'm sorry,
$8.
sorry.
And there are some people that, I mean, that's what they do in the summer, no matter
Right.
how far they have to drive.
Right. Right.
You know,
Well,
and that's just the passion of the people. Though. Those are the people that want to be there, and those are the people you want to have there. Are the people that want to be
schedule
there.
their vacations around the King Band.
Oh, that's awesome.
well, and if especially I assume some of them are teachers, right? So then their summer is their
Probably
off
at
time.
least half the band, I'd
Most,
say,
a
would
lot
be.
of them are teachers. I'm
Yeah,
probably one of the
probably
few that
over half.
isn't anymore.
I would think.
Yeah. So to have your summer off and still commit to something weekly is again
Absolutely.
a testament.
But it
for
helps
sure.
to keep the lips in shape, for when you're teaching and stuff.
For
But,
sure.
when Mr. King was directing, it was just such an honor to play for Mr. King that I think people would drive wherever
matter.
they needed to.
Yeah. I'll be there.
We had a gentleman, you probably saw him yesterday, was contacted about 3 weeks ago by this band director from Atlanta,
yeah.
Georgia, and he wanted to come up and hear the King Band. And so I'm a little suspicious because I think, why? It means a lot to me, but why would I want to go from Atlanta, Georgia, to Fort Dodge, Iowa? But he was quite a good band director in Georgia, and we had a great conversation last night. But he told me this was on my bucket list of things to do.
Wow.
And so he was here last night, saw rehearsal, saw the concert. Today he's in Oskaloosa at the Barnhouse Publishing Company. Tomorrow he'll be somewhere in Illinois at the John Philip Sousa Museum.
Wow.
Wednesday through Friday he'll be in Indianapolis at a jazz or a marching band camp and watch drum course Friday night before he flies back to Atlanta.
Wow.
That's cool.
So,
That is-
I mean,
I have to tell a cute little story that happened when I was driving semi-truck for a few years, and I stopped at this rest area, and I went in, and there was a kid behind because it was one of the welcome centers for Iowa.
Yeah.
He was back there and playing drums or something, and I can't remember how it came up, but came up that I played music, and so the guy at the welcome center said, "Hey, he's a musician too." And so we started talking. He goes, "Well, who do you play for?" I said, "Well, I play with the Karl King Band." The kid just like froze. His eyes got like saucers. He goes, "The Karl King?" And I'm like,
Yes.
"Yeah." So before I left, he goes, "Tell everybody hi." He goes, "We play some of the King music, in junior high or whatever."
Yeah.
And
That's I love
Awesome.
that.
That's super fun.
there are so many stories like that. Yeah.
Okay, so you alluded to the Spencer Fair. You can add an additional one here if you'd like to, but I would like you, and we probably have time for about my last 3 questions here. So, I want to know before we get to the juicy, embarrassing stories.
Ooh.
Memorable. You get one really memorable experience, and I know there's more. I know it's hard to just say one, but the one that encompasses your experience with the band. And maybe for you it was that Spencer Fair with the flag.
It probably was. That was, and not only that, I had some other kids that I knew that were singing with the choir that sang behind us at one.
Well, and you were in the military, correct?
Yes, yeah.
So yeah, the patriotic.
Yep, I'm an old Marine Corps.
Did you play in the?
No, I did
Okay.
not. I was infantry.
Okay. I didn't have room for my saxophone. Okay. Jerry.
Well, there's so many, but
know.
probably the one that I still remember was 1976 when the King Band and the Fort Dodge Civic League Club were invited to Washington, D.C., and that was the bicentennial year, and the Kennedy Center was saluting every state at some point.
Oh, wow.
And Iowa Day was right toward the end of May. It was like right around Memorial Day weekend. And we were invited there. And it was, the figure $24,000 sticks in my head right now is what it was going to cost to take everybody there.
And what year
And-
was this, did you say?
1976.
76, okay.
And at that time, there was a television station here in town called KQTV. It was kind of out by where the soccer field is at now, out by Iowa Central.
Okay.
Across from Casey's.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a local TV station. So we had a telethon. And the band played, and the choir, the glee club sang, and people called in and pledged so much money, and we raised the $24,000. So here we go to Washington, D.C. Some drove. A lot of people were on a charter flight going out there. And to play in the Kennedy Center, play the concert there. Iowa was the only state that filled the Kennedy Center to capacity, standing room only crowd.
Wow.
Standing ovation when we were done playing. It was just unbelievable. But to play at the Smithsonian, to play on the steps of the Capitol, to play at Arlington Cemetery, it was just such an amazing trip.
Yeah.
That's probably my all-time highlight.
Yeah, for sure.
That was incredible.
Oh, that makes me proud of our state.
That's super cool.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And again, there's pictures on the website. So
Go to the website.
The link is in the description. That's all. You just have to scroll down and click
Right.
it.
But what is it? Karl King Band?
it's karlking.us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very simple. karlking.us.
Karl King.
And there's also a Facebook page. Okay, and I'll just throw that out, but that's a little more complicated.
Is it?
Yeah, karlking.us is the easiest one to remember in the world. But yeah, https://www.
Just look up Karl King Band on
Type in
Facebook.
Karl King.
Right there. Read it off the screen.
I love it.
Okay, never mind. Link in the description.
Yes,
Yeah.
there will be links to everything down there.
Yeah,
I'll
just
hunt them
Google
down.
it and you'll find it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And the Facebook page is really great for the weekly concert information.
Correct.
What's coming up? What's the
cool.
programming for that? And of course, on our community calendar too, we list all of the concerts and share that same press release information on our website as well. So there's no reason not to find it.
Yes.
So most embarrassing moment, and I want it to be juicy.
Probably the time I got to the concert without a white shirt or a tie.
Oops.
But luckily I sit in the back, so it wasn't noticeable. My neck strap for my Barry sax
Oh, kind of helped disguise.
conveniently like a tie.
Was that the day you played in your T-shirt?
Oh, he remembers. Dun, dun,
That was terrible.
I was just gonna kick it over to him and be like, do you know? Have you heard this story? Is this the first time you've heard this?
Okay, so that brings up a good point. I mean, this is not the uniform that you wear today, but are you still wearing uniforms even in 105-degree heat like yesterday?
No, we've backed away from that.
I was
The
thinking
decision
so.
was made not to wear uniforms in the summer just to kind of protect them,
Right.
From absorbing all that perspiration.
And the clean,
so-
not to protect the people,
The
to protect the uniforms.
Yeah.
We do wear them for the winter concerts.
Right.
But unfortunately, we don't have enough uniforms to fit everybody that comes in and out
Sure,
of the band.
sure.
So it looks kind of mishmash when you see it.
Yeah.
But, if you look at it, the people that wear the uniforms are the people that are the regular members of the band.
Sure.
And those
Identifies them.
Those
Yeah.
that don't wear the uniform, either it doesn't fit anymore or they're the subs coming in. So,
Okay.
But yeah.
And it is when you're out playing and you show up with the gold stripe down your pant leg, there's a air of respect that people
sure.
show you no matter where you're at.
Yeah, that happened to us down at Boone when we were
Yeah.
playing down there. People saw that stripe and they knew right away
It's King Band.
King
who they
Band.
were. Yeah.
That's cool.
That is cool. Yeah. Okay.
The interesting thing about the uniforms, I think, is that happened around 1930, 1931. And Karl King had a deep respect for John Philip Sousa. John Philip Sousa was a lieutenant commander in the military, in the Marine Corps, after he was touring with his band. So the King Band uniform was Mr. King basing the uniform of John Philip Sousa's band in the lieutenant commander uniform. So that's why you see the star and the stripes and all that. So
Insignias
it's,
on the collars.
yeah, and I've got a book at home of the life of Sousa, and you can see where it came from. You can see the band of Sousa's uniform, and if you don't look at the face or whatever, that's the King Band uniform.
Yeah.
So that was based on John Philip Sousa.
Every time you say Sousa, I hear a piccolo solo in my head. That's just my brain. Okay, Jerry, we want your most embarrassing moment.
Well, there's a saying in the band that, and it came from the circus.
Get around that.
Anybody that's called a first of May is a rookie. So if you were on the circus and the circus started in May and it was your first time with the circus,
okay,
you were considered a first of Mayer.
Okay.
And so you were kind of open for any kind of jokes or anything that goes on. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
the hazing, if you will.
here I am. I think I was 16 years old by this time, and it was my first winter concert in January. And we showed up, and we're practicing before the concert, and Arnie Bodie says, "Okay, guys," it was an Irish concert. Arnie Bodie says, "Okay, guys, don't forget to wear your green socks on Sunday." But,
oh, geez.
Green socks. Nobody told me about green socks.
But I'll get them.
So I went home, searched my drawer, and I had this outrageous color of green socks. And so I
wear them today.
No, I and so I show up and I've got green socks on, and everybody's giving me a hard time. That was my initiation in the band. Wow. Fortunately, I grew up in Fort Dodge. Quick trip home, got the right color socks, and I'm back. That's
funny.
probably my most embarrassing moment. My green socks.
That's a good one.
Oh man, that makes me think like you're on a stage. That's like eye level for
it
everybody.
Is,
like
yeah.
The socks
you can totally
too.
tell.
Oh man, they were a Technicolor. They were about as they were green, about like your water bottle.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that color
like
green.
a lime, a nice lime green.
And a dark navy uniform, and
classic.
Green socks.
Yeah.
Oh, I was really colorful.
They look great. Yeah.
It provided a few laughs at my expense.
That's a good one. I like that.
That's fun.
Okay, so in both of your own words, why is having a band of this caliber important to the community? The legacy important to the community? And this is just off the top of your head. There's no preparation in these questions for them. So take it with a grain of salt. And why should someone come? Why should someone attend, especially if they've never been to a Karl King concert? Roger, I'm going to make you go first because you're next to me. Bum, bum, bum.
I wish I could show you the picture of my granddaughter when she was 3 years old, when Stars and Stripes started playing. She couldn't sit still. Mm-hmm. She was jumping and dancing and clapping her hands. And, that's the kind of effect that this type of music has on the young people. Imagine what that does to us, It's an energy that's hard to find without overpowering stuff,
For sure.
It's just
free.
Yeah.
And literally free. The concerts are free.
Yeah, which is also mind-blowing to me. It's like this is a service to the community.
Yeah. So the generational impact.
Yeah, and the history and the music. It's, and we play the overtures. We play some of the more modern stuff. We play a lot of things that people wouldn't hear if they didn't come to the concerts.
Yeah. And, and we did the Fort Dodge Area Symphony a few episodes ago. And Josh, the conductor, was talking about a woman who had brought her child to a concert that ended up being a little distracting in the concert for a few moments. And Josh talked to her after the concert, and she's like, "I'm so sorry. I'll never bring her again." And Josh was like, "No, please bring her. We want them to learn how to behave in these settings and learn what this is all about. And this is actually a really great place for them to have a little more freedom for energy and, wooing and things like that aren't going to be distracting and are just kind of part of enjoying the experience, I would imagine. A little bit safer for the parents.
Yeah, and ours are outdoors, so
that's what I mean. Yeah, especially in the summer.
Some people, I think I've seen people bring their pets with them and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Bring your own lawn chair.
Yep. Bring your own chair or a blanket or something.
There's a lot of shade even on the hot days.
Yeah, it was really comfortable last night.
If I recall correctly, that story you were talking about, somebody pulled a fire alarm. Is what it was.
Oh, God. Yeah, it was real distracting.
Yes, it's very distracting.
Yeah, there's no fire
So
alarms
there's no fire
at
alarms
Olson Park.
Yeah, okay.
But even still, it was the point of it was
Yeah, it was a teaching thing.
teaching moment for
Actually,
that student.
I made a clip out of that, and that did really well, actually,
The reel?
as a clip, because it brings up a really good point.
Don't be scared to expose your children to the arts because of something like that.
Yeah,
for sure.
exactly.
How about you, Jerry? The importance of a band like this and why you feel someone should experience this if it would be their first time.
Well, I think there's such a variety of music that's presented, and I personally took a lot of pride in trying to do what Mr. King felt was really important. And I don't think I'm alone. I think Reg tried to do that, previous director. I think Bill Green tried to do that. That if you study Mr. King's programming, which I have, you realize after a while that he always starts with 2 marches and then a classical overture piece, maybe a waltz, some vocal or soloists, some popular things toward the end, like the big band medley last night and so on, end with the marches. Mr. King's programs were always an hour. He never wanted them to go longer than an hour. He used to say he wanted the audience wanting more.
Yeah.
And so they were an hour. He always ended with the national anthem. And at times I'm just amazed when somebody asks me, who was Karl King? Because we've got, that's about a 3-hour conversation. But
How much time you got?
how do you not know we've got the Karl King Bridge? How do you not know one of only 3 in the United States? One in Washington, D.C. for John Philip Sousa, and one in Allentown, Pennsylvania for Albertus Myers and Karl King.
Yeah.
3. You're in the Karl King Memorial Park right now. There's a statue of Karl King out there.
Right.
There's the Karl King Band shell. How do you not know who this person is? And then I stop and realize Mr. King's been gone since 1971. That's more than 50 years ago.
Right.
That's 2 generations of people.
Right.
People that might have grown up here, but they don't know who he was.
Yeah.
And so it's just so important for the cultural fabric of a city. And I'm just so amazed, especially Shelly, when you do your radio things with on the Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever, you do Shiny Top or whatever, and you talk about these events that are coming up, and they're in the paper, and there's something out at the winery, and there's something at Shiny Top, and there's something at the Blandon, and there's something at the college, and it just goes on and on and on. There is so many cultural outlets here in town. And, the Blandon Art Museum is a whole different story.
Right.
That is just so important to the cultural fabric. If we lose our music and our culture, we have nothing left anymore.
Yeah.
And we can't lose that.
That's what survives through hardship.
Yeah.
Is art and culture, for sure.
I've made the comment so many times, especially with high school music programs. If you do a concert, or if you take a group to a contest and you don't play a march, which a lot of bands do not do, unfortunately, anymore. To me, that is like teaching American history and totally ignoring the Constitution. Music started with bands, marching bands.
Yeah.
Music started with transcriptions of what orchestras were playing, because bands didn't have original music. They had the marches, but not original. So all of this just developed, and to study the history of that and to understand how these cultures grew and improved from that, just come to the concerts on Sunday night and listen to the announcements and understand why they are so important.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
Well-
you'll definitely learn something.
Oh, for sure. I mean, look how much we've learned
I
today.
was gonna say,
and
this
I
is
had
awesome.
notes of some of this stuff, like, and we haven't even. There's just so much.
Stay tuned for episode 2. No.
Well, and I think we've alluded to this a little bit over the last 10 months of doing this podcast. My hope is that this podcast format does reach the next generation and does share the passion that the people involved in these organizations that have built such a legacy. Again, I continue to use that word, but I think that's the only word to use. The legacy of and the commitment to the people that have been involved in these. And I hope that this can be used as an archival tool to continue to find new ways to inform our listeners and our community about the amazing opportunities that we have here in Fort
The
Dodge.
thing to realize about Karl King is that he is loved throughout the world. It's not just here in
Oh,
Fort
no
Dodge.
way. Yeah.
It's not in Iowa. It's not even in the United States. His music is played throughout the world. And at one time, not too long ago, his music was really, really big in Japan and in Switzerland, surprisingly.
Okay.
Who knew? And it's been a few years ago now, but Alan Sponheimer, our webmaster with the karlking.us website, he's able to trace who logs in to our website. And there were 125 hits on that website from 125 countries in the world.
Wow.
There were countries I have never heard of.
I don't even know how many countries are there.
That has to be most of them.
Yeah, no kidding.
But, obviously, Canada, United States, Great Britain.
Right.
Some of the European countries. But there are
125
countries,
countries.
Africa and Middle East and the Orient, and it's just all over. I'm not aware that anybody from Antarctica has logged in yet.
That's only because they had
But
trouble
we're
connecting.
still trying to reach them.
They just had Wi-Fi signal issues.
No, but seriously, 125 different countries
Yeah.
know about Karl King.
Yeah,
Why do
wild.
people in Fort Dodge not know about Karl King?
I know.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
It's like fingernails on a chalkboard for me when people are who, or we have a museum, or we have a symphony.
That kid I talked to was from Texas.
Okay, yeah, and
And
he
he-
knew of
he
Karl
knew about
King.
it.
Yeah,
He was like,
I love that. Okay, so this is going to release Friday, July 4th, Independence Day.
Nice.
So your concert will be a couple days after this releases. Is that I can't remember the press release. Is that a patriotic concert,
It
I
is.
assume?
Yeah, and there's some really neat things on that concert. One that I would really encourage people to go to is a song called An American Salute, which actually starts out with God Save the Queen, the British song that was used as America, in kind of mocking ways.
Yep.
It goes into just a whole history of music. It's probably about a 150-year history in about a 6-minute song. Take you through all the different events that have happened in our country. So that one's really neat. Bugler's Holiday is on that program. Everybody loves that one. Scott Johnston's going to be there narrating Within These Hallowed Halls.
Okay.
Which is a takeoff on Amazing Grace and Battle Hymn of the Republic. Of course, Stars and Stripes.
Of course.
That just brings people up out of their seats every time.
But what a great way to end your 4th of July weekend
perfect,
by
yeah.
attending this concert. They are held at the same time every Sunday, which is
7:30.
7:30, so it's a little bit later,
And
which
it
is
costs
good. Nothing.
It costs nothing.
And it costs nothing. And usually there's a group that has ice cream for a free will donation.
Oh, sweet.
So that's generally the case. And your summer concerts last through, when is the last one of the summer? Do you know?
July 27th.
Of course you know. July 27th. And then your school year season works a little bit differently. It's not every Sunday.
Right. There's one concert in February, which is usually around Mr. King's birthday, February 21st.
Okay.
And then there's an Irish concert in March, usually around March 17th, St. Patrick's Day.
Yep.
And then there's a spring concert, which is our scholarship concert.
Okay.
Where people come in and audition, and then So there's 3 concerts during the winter months at the middle school.
Yep.
And Memorial Day.
Okay.
And then it's 8 concerts in the summer, so 12 concerts a year.
And the Memorial Day one is usually out at
It's out at the Veterans Park,
Veterans
out
Park,
by
or-
Kennedy.
that way.
Kennedy Park, Badger Lake, yeah.
Yeah. Scholarships too. I assume all the scholarship information is also on your website.
Yep.
So teachers, students can learn about that. I mean, we could go on and on about this, Peter.
Absolutely.
And I knew we would be able to.
This is
before
great. This is an awesome one. I learned a lot, and I feel like there's a lot more to learn. So I want check out the website if you're looking for more of a timeline on everything that happened. I'm going to hopefully, you've already seen it, but I'm going to take pictures of some stuff in here and just insert it in here as we were talking about it. And this is super good. So if you're looking at anything Karl King, scroll down below in the descriptions. I'm going to have the links down there. And if you're looking for anything else Shelly was talking about, Fort Dodge Fine Arts Association information is below that. So
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your contributions to the
Thank you
podcast.
for having us come in.
Yeah,
This has been
Tell
fun.
your story. I know there's more to be told. I can't wait to read your book. Maybe we need a deadline on that here.
There are a couple of books.
No, I want to read your book.
No, I don't know about mine. The biography about Karl King is really good, and the history of the band that came out in 2002 is really good.
Yeah.
Got a lot of stories about the people in the band and
Yeah.
so on.
And
So,
can you get
yeah.
those here at the library also?
You can buy them both together for $20. I think it is.
Okay. You also have some CDs here, I see, some note
CDs, yeah.
cards. And I just have to say, I think I can't think of, and I'm not in the instrumental world, but I love the fact that Dan Cassidy is in the position that he's in and continuing this legacy and respecting the traditions behind it. And I don't think you could have found a better pick for that.
Yeah, I
So,
hope Dan continues for a long time.
you hear that, Dan?
yeah, I almost don't want to bring this up. You were talking about it before we were recording, like the tough choice of like direct. If you're directing, you're not playing,
Right.
and if you really want to play, then
Yeah.
it's that weird thing. I never even thought of that.
I loved to play. I just really did.
Yeah.
But something had to change, so.
Yeah. You had a different calling in that moment,
I guess.
and you took it.
A
And I
legacy
really,
was
really
created.
wanted to continue Mr. King's legacy.
And you did.
I hope I did.
So congratulations to you
Hope I did.
too. You've made a lot of people's lives better,
I hope
both
so.
both as a director and an audience member. So
hope so.
thank you for that.
Thanks.
All right,
Okay.
that's it.
Yeah, you take us out.
All right,
Or did you?
I already did a couple times. Okay. The links are down below, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us.
Come on in, sit next to me. Tell me how you been and spill a little tea. Share a happy grin and let your mind go free. Everybody wins, keep it light and carefree. It's just a thoughtful exchange. We're engaging our brains about the arts here in town. Get the word going round. So come on in, sit next to me, and sip a little Fort Dodge tea. Fort Dodge tea, a thoughtful exchange about the arts. Thanks for dropping by.